asking questions, and I love learning new things. Hello, I'm Tom Martin, and a lifelong journalist. I've produced stories for ABC News, CBS News, CNN, and a few other organizations along the way. And I love the conversations that we have right here on A San Francisco Conservative, the podcast. And the reason for that is the man of the hour, my dear friend David Parker. David is the author of Income and Wealth and the book, A San Francisco Conservative, and he joins us from San Francisco. Hi, David. How are you today?
I'm fine. Thanks, Tom.
Great to see you. Great to see you. I have the great honor of reading your essays. I know that you've been busy writing numerous essays that'll be going into your next book, and I'm sure we'll all look for that. One of the essays that you shared with me recently had to do with globalization. And, some of you, if you've watched a couple of these episodes, may know I'm kind of a politics junkie. I got my start at CBS News in Washington, covering the White House and all that kind of thing. I'm interested in the election results and all of that. And so globalization and what our policy is or should be is of great interest to me. You start this essay by quoting the associate editor for the Financial Times, who said, "Globalization failed to deliver the economy we need." What do you make of that statement?
It's an ignorant statement. Globalization is just markets on a bigger scale. You can't stop something like that. In fact, it's a good idea. What if you're in Africa and you make a very nice bowl or a drum or a sculpture, very nice sculpture? Your market is so small, people in your village are not going to give you $1,000 for that sculpture. And the sculpture may very well be worth $1,000, it may be worth more. How are you going to sell it? But if all of a sudden that person can go on Instagram and advertise it around the world, someone's going to buy that sculpture. He has the whole world for a market. And if that sculpture is really good, he'll start making money.
Yeah.
That's just expanding markets.
Yeah.
There's some irony, I suppose, is that, in fact, at the beginning of globalization, in fact, the author who you're quoting said that would be a good way to keep populist leaders in check from throwing tariffs or just crazy policies, because the world market was just would crush it. But it didn't work quite like that, and there's some truth to it. What happens is populist leaders began putting tariffs up to protect jobs at home, and exactly the opposite. A nation has its comparative advantage, and you destroy that nation's comparative advantage. Ours is high tech. Someone else might be farming, whatever that is. But when you protect an industry, it can't compete anymore, and it will die. Nations will die if they don't produce according to their comparative advantage. So I'm sorry. It ends up being you're breaking every timeless law of business and economics.
Mm-hmm. So any political leader, whether it's here in America, the US, or elsewhere, if they say, I don't believe in globalization, let's build a moat around our nation, in terms of prices and trade and so on, they're just not in touch with reality in terms of full opportunity. And that does have to do with these timeless laws of economics, right?
Reality, and then there's some statistics involved. I think the Department of Commerce has reports they put out. When you protect the job, it's about $500,000 in tariffs and in lost income to the nation to protect the job. Stop. It's wrong. The statistics are telling you. When a president says, vote for me and I'm going to protect the whole oil industry in this nation. In fact, I'll even protect them from Tesla. And that's an American company. By subsidizing them and preventing foreign autos from coming in. It's completely wrong.
So these are all artificial barriers
Yeah, artificial, but the cost to do that, excuse me, that was my point. It's about $500,000 per job to protect.
Wow.
Can't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah.
We
And
don't have to trade with China because, or any country that's not protecting environmental standards. It's treating its people badly. It's operating badly. But citizens can be told that. Don't buy Chinese products if you want, but you don't have to make it a law that we're going to put tariffs on Chinese products. It's tough.
I don't know, this isn't anything we've discussed before in terms of just an example or a question comes to mind. So one of the challenges of the situation in Ukraine being bombed by the Russians is the fact that the Russians have a lot of oil. And so they're talking about, well, Russia will withhold that oil from Germany and various European countries and so on, because they're contributing weapons to the Ukrainians and all that. What do you make of that Russian oil situation?
Yeah, that's not unlike the Chinese human rights and their policies just in general. Sometimes you have to take a stand for a period of time. That's something else. Maybe we can have tariffs for China for a period of time, and that's Putin. He's gambling that the West will bow under when they need that oil, and the West has to say, no, we will bite the bullet. We will not buy your oil. That's wartime. That's a temporary situation. You have to do the right thing. The West has to take a stance because Xi in China and Erdogan and some of the Middle Eastern rulers and Putin, they're all waiting to see, are we going to stand up or not? And sometimes you have to stand up. And Ukraine is not the greatest country in the world. It has no history of democracy, treated its Jews pretty badly. It welcomed the Nazis. It has no history of democracy, but they want to be a Western country. They seem to be a new people today. They've come together in a courageous way. We all admire them. So that's the country we have to draw the line, I guess, as it were, and we can't let Russia beat them if we can prevent them. We don't have to go ourselves personally, but NATO and U.S. and all these nations should come together. I don't know why we can't send over 1 million soldiers from all the countries in the world, just like a football game. Push them back.
Right.
That's all.
Right.
Don't bomb. We're not going to bomb Russia. Just push them out of the country.
Right.
Something, let them know that Putin can't just do that because he feels like it.
Yeah. I have a follow-up question for you, but I certainly want to let those of you who are joining us by video or audio, listening or viewing, know that, again, this is a San Francisco Conservative, the podcast featuring David Parker, author of the great new book, San Francisco Conservative, as well as author of Income and Wealth. And I'm Tom Barton. Thank you very much for joining us. Earlier, you mentioned that or the way that I heard it or interpreted it, is saying we need to have a little more faith in our people. If there are certain challenges in the world, we don't solve them through tariffs and artificial barriers and so on. Whenever election time comes around, we hear about, fears of inflation and how much does it cost as a gallon of gasoline at the pump. And so it sounds to me like you're saying we need to tell our population, you have freedom. We're not going to put up tariffs. We're not going to create artificial barriers, but gasoline may be more expensive because of what's going on in the world right now. You need to have patience with that. And we're sort of empowering the population instead of, it sounds like, many Americans are kind of whining, oh, poor me, the cost of gasoline is too high. What do you make of all that?
Yeah, you hit it on the head. You have to show some principle. As the only thing that makes me conservative is that I say we should spend within our budget, not spend more than we're taxing. And then also we should stick to some principles. The Constitution is only one page. It's just a general document. It says we'll elect our leaders and only they can pass laws, not administrative agencies passing laws. Congress has to pass laws. It's just a few things, and the government is limited, can do a few things, and that's all. You have to stick to principle, and when you say that, that means when times are tough, you have to stick to principle. You have to be responsible, and that was one of Thomas Jefferson's big faiths in America. Just why he says every person in this nation gets the vote, regardless of social status, regardless of wealth. Everyone gets the vote because citizens can and do think for themselves. And if you're afraid of that, you're afraid of democracy. And he says to people at the beginning of the Revolutionary War, leave. If you're afraid of this, no king or queen, a government so small you can't see it, citizens on their own, every man for himself, leave. And thousands fled to Canada, by the way.
Yeah.
That's not for us.
Yeah.
We're European socialists.
Yeah. And speaking of the government making that kind of request or giving that kind of responsibility, putting that trust in the people, which is such an American idea, which I love.
Yeah,
certainly.
Great American idea.
Yeah. In your essay on globalization, you wrote about the Soviet Union, and it sounds like that's not what was going on there as far as government leadership and its relationship to the people. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, they had the notion that the community should come together and the workers should own the factories. But the factories that's a highly skilled business. It takes a lifetime to learn how to acquire and operate a factory. You don't ask the stagehand to play in the orchestra. You have to learn the instrument first. It can't be done. If there was profit to distribute to the workers because they own the factory's going, if they would say there was 10% profit, the factory's going to operate it at about 10% loss immediately from having the wrong people running the factory, not the investors, not the entrepreneur, the workers. So there's no profit. In fact, that profit, which is probably not more than 10%, started dropping every year, 10% in inefficiency, 10%. Pretty soon, the Soviet Union, like Cuba, fell back into the Middle Ages. The road to serfdom is the expression for that. You can't have the stagehands run the orchestra, play the orchestra.
Good metaphor. Again, looking back on your essay on globalization, you talk about neoliberalism, and again, this whole idea of globalization. What should we be aware of in that regard?
Just remember underlying truths. Globalization is market economy on a bigger scale. The poor sculptor in Africa is not so poor. He went on Instagram and sold, or whatever it is, and sold that sculpture. That's how it works. And at a particular moment in time, if a country is acting really badly, the world can just not buy from that country for a while, and it'll come around.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, a lot of great insight shared here today. I think we're out of time, but I want to thank you. And again, to our viewers and listeners, make sure you pick up copies of David's books, Income and Wealth and A San Francisco Conservative. You can do that by visiting his website, davidparkeressays.com, or by going to Amazon. So any closing words to share, David?
Well, if you listen to I'm always talking in terms of time past, time present, time future. It's the same. So I give examples throughout my works of everything we're talking about at different points in history and how it's the same. And it's reassuring. The world is not falling apart. Don't worry about it.
Comforting words during this challenging time. A lot of stress and anxiety out there, and I do find that reassuring. I find reading your books reassuring. So thank you so much. I look forward to our next conversation.
Me too. Thank you.